Enroll now at Australia's Sydney Met and win a scholarship of up to $15,000. Apply today.
Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 3rd of April 2024. Economic Commission, export processing zones currently under the Board of Investment to be established under a new state entity, Investment Board, to transform into a comprehensive economic commission.
What we have will be a separate company holding the government zones together.
Port City. No lifetime tax exemptions granted to Port City investors, claims State Minister of Investment Promotion.
හරියටම කවදා සිට කවදා වෙනකන්ද බදු සහනේ දෙන්නේ කියන එක හතරවෙනි යමුනුවේ තියෙනවා.
Digitize SOEs. Transport Board loses 10 million rupees a day due to fraud related to high volume of cash-based deals.
CTB එකයි එහෙම ඔක්කොම ඩිජිටලයිස් කරගත්තොත් මේ මහජනයා මත පැනවෙන බදු ප්‍රමාණය විශාල ලෙස අඩු කරගන්න.
Business revival. Central Bank issues new guidelines to licensed banks for the establishing of business revival units to aid struggling businesses sustainably.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Ava Derana First at 9 with Indivari Amuata and Mahish Jani. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening, everyone. Welcome to First at 9. Good to have you on this. Okay, I have got my dates mixed up again. Wednesday night. Apparently midweek, I seem to be just phasing out. How are you, Indivari? A very good evening.
Good. I'm doing good. Thank you. Good evening to all of you joining us from at home or on mobile. This is First at 9, your primetime English news service on Other Derana 24. We have coverage of island-wide events, and our stories will cover the developments of news today and ongoing events. Plus, we have some international news, especially the earthquake in Taiwan. I did see a video circulating on social media that even iron beams were falling off high-rise buildings, and yet the damage of this earthquake is not assessed as yet.
Indeed, and with regard to Sri Lanka, there's a lot of stories with regard to what's happening in the port city. Investors, whether they've been given tax exemption, that has come into question. The opposition seems to be questioning that particular fact. The government is refuting that. So that particular conversation is occurring as well. And on with regard to the political situation, well, again, it's the elections per se. Everybody seems to be putting a fresh face to the people, trying to figure out whether can they secure power. So that's basically what's happening.
And also the Catholic Church has expressed displeasure over a visit by Inspector General of Police and also pertaining to statements by former President Maithripala Sirisena. Well, he too has refused to make an additional statement to the courts because a statement was already recorded with the Criminal Investigations Department regarding an earlier comment he made over his knowledge on the attackers.
You think he regrets making that statement?
Honestly, he's made so many statements that I'm really not sure whether he regrets it or whether he actually has knowledge of it.
Only he can tell.
That's a separate question, but definitely social media is taking this to an entirely different level.
All right, so let's begin tonight's bulletin. President Ranil Wickremesinghe affirmed his commitment to bolstering the Sri Lankan economy through establishment of competitive investment avenues.
Now, addressing a gathering in Colombo, the head of state unveiled plans to transform status quo to a highly competitive, export-oriented economy with the role of the investment board transitioning into a comprehensive economic commission.
Now, speaking further, he he envisioned a singular investment zone and intimated that export processing zones would be separated from the Economic Commission, enabling investors with autonomy to develop and manage their own zones.
The Investment Board Awards ceremony was held at the Presidential Secretariat yesterday under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. This inaugural ceremony coincided with the 45th anniversary of the Board of Investments, during which President Wickremesinghe bestowed 30 awards upon deserving companies for their contributions towards foreign direct investment, export performance, and recognizing long-standing active participants.
At the 45th anniversary of the BOI, some of your companies had been with the BOI, it was supposed for more than 40 years, and the tremendous amount of forex and the employment that you had provided the country is a great deal for us. Unfortunately, as he stated, though the export awards held by the EDB had been functional for a long time, for some reason BOI had not been able to recognize the key players who had bought in the major component of the forex into the country.
What are you stabilizing? We are stabilizing an import-dependent economy. So the next is our transformation to an export-oriented, highly competitive economy. You have 10-15 years to do it. And amidst that, the BOI will change its character again as the Economic Commission. We look at some of the shortcomings, especially approvals will be handled by one agency. And that will take, even if ministries have any objections, it can be taken up. The minister will decide whether to go ahead or not. But secondly, we are going to separate the zones from the Economic Commission, because our zones, especially Biagama and Katunayaka, has achieved the status of being about the best in the South Asian region. But with this, we can stand on our feet. So we will have an investment zone Sri Lanka, and people will then, you will be a license holder, you can run own zones. So you need not worry to have one under the BOI. But what we have will be a separate company holding the government zones together. There are many more to come. We are waiting till the official creditors committee sign the agreements. We have about 1,000 acres now in Biagama. We are looking at about 3,000 to 4,000 acres in Trincomalee, another 1,000 acres in North in 3 batches, about 3,000 to 4,000 acres in Hambantota, not to talk of the smaller zones that we will develop.
New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations. Dulux.
State Minister of Investment Promotion Dilum Amunugama expressed his objection to remarks made by Dr. Harsha De Silva during yesterday's parliamentary session pertaining to tax exemptions granted to projects within the Colombo Port City economic area.
Now, STB parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva alleged that tax exemptions are provided for an infinite number of years to projects within the port city, while the public are burdened with increased value-added tax.
State Minister Amunugama highlighted that time frames during which taxes will be exempt to projects within the port city are stipulated in a Gazette notification issued.
Well, he further added that the investments were brought into the port city projects on the basis of tax exemptions provided to its investors, with 12 investors already having agreed to invest within the port city project.
Tax exemptions are provided within the port city. They have exempted all taxes to a certain company by considering its income, profit and dividends per the Act. Are we supposed to accept this? There is yet another company which has been exempt from taxes for many years. How can this go on? They charge a tax of 18% from the innocent masses while exempting these companies from paying taxes for a lifetime.
However, State Minister of Investment Promotion Dilum Amunugama called a media briefing today to address this and took exception to Dr. Harsha De Silva's statement.
He insinuated that these tax exemptions have been provided to political henchmen whilst imposing taxes on the people of Sri Lanka. He made a submission in such a way that he withheld certain articles of salient information. This is the Gazette notification which was brought up yesterday. A list of companies have been cited in it. The second attachment mentions which exemptions would be provided to these companies. The fourth attachment includes information on the time frames for which these exemptions have been provided. What is Harsha De Silva doing? He is making a serious allegation that tax exemptions have been provided to political henchmen while increasing the value-added tax for the people of this country, and he has done so by submitting only 3 attachments which does not depict the time frame of tax exemptions. All attachments, including the Gazette, are available in Parliament. It is truly regrettable that a person like Harsha De Silva deliberately misled the Parliament and the people of this country. He is attempting to show the country that taxes have been exempt in a situation where we have pitched for investments on the basis of tax exemptions. How will we collect taxes if these 12 projects are not brought in? You are aware of the economic crisis. It is not easy to bring in investors amidst an economic crisis. All of us, under the President's leadership, exhausted an immense effort to bring in investors. 12 investors have agreed to invest in this project. The minimum threshold for investments is $100 million. The investment threshold for social infrastructure projects such as schools and hospitals is $25 million. However, all other financial projects such as business holds a minimum limit of investments of $100 million.
මේ බදු සහනේ පිට තමයි මේ ආයෝජන මේක ඇතුළට එන්නේ.
Well, the Catholic Church, during a media briefing today, commented on former President Maithripala Sirisena's recent controversial statements regarding his knowledge of the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks.
These comments were made during a media briefing convened to express the Church's displeasure at the Police Inspector General for visiting the survivors of the attacks on Easter Sunday.
Now, despite the Church's stance, however, the former president announced that he does not intend to provide a statement pertaining to his comments to the Maligakanda Magistrates Court tomorrow, based on the facts that he had already done so to the Criminal Investigation Department.
This past Easter Sunday, while inspecting the security measures instituted at the St. Sebastian's Church in Katuapitiya, Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakon visited the survivors of the 2019 Easter Sunday attack. The Archdiocese of Colombo, during a press briefing today, expressed his displeasure at the Inspector General's gesture.
What we require is justice, not charity. We want a detailed investigation into the Easter Sunday attack. No, we were not notified in any way. We once again reiterate that what is needed is a detailed investigation.
We see this as an insult not only to the victims but to every citizen of this country.
The Church also criticised former President Maithripala Sirisena for his recent controversial remarks about his knowledge of the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks.
We do not know if that will resolve the issue. However, what it has revealed is that there must have been more players behind this attack. That report was based on the statement he gave to the CID. However, no one outside of the CID has full knowledge of the statement. The timing of the statement raises questions. We do not believe that he received this information 3 weeks ago. Our belief is that he had full knowledge of the attack from the inception. That is why we have reiterated the need for an independent investigation into the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks.
In the wake of his comments, Sirisena was ordered by the Maligakanda magistrate to make a statement to court on the 4th of April. However, the former president, through his legal counsel today, informed the court that there would be no need for him to make another statement in court, as he had already provided a 5-hour-long statement to the Criminal Investigation Department.
Well, independent parliamentarian Udaya Gammanpila says that the government is conspiring to hold both general and the presidential elections on the same day. Affirming this notion, Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna parliamentarian S. Chandrasena confirmed that the request had been put forward by the Speaker of the Parliament.
The President wants to hold the erosion of his power. He wants to delay the general election until they hold presidential elections. Meanwhile, Basil Rajapaksa wants to hold general elections before the presidential elections results are out in order to minimize the damage to the SLPP from the presidential election. Trusted sources within the government say that in order to satisfy both these sides, there are discussions underway to hold both elections on the same day.
The Speaker has requested that both elections be held on the same day. I too agree with this. This will provide great peace of mind to the general public during a time where the country is going through an economic crisis. No one will be treated unfairly in that way either.
We will have to wait and see as there is still time. I hope there will be several contestants. The President will also contest. People must evaluate this based on who led the country during the most difficult of times. Only after understanding that can a leader that can take hard decisions be selected.
Our next step is to come forward as an alliance. We will establish the foundation for that this coming Friday. We have decided to contest under the same banner. Presently, we are coming forward as the Samagi Alliance.
State Minister of Women and Child Affairs Geetha Kumarasinghe revealed that plans are underway to establish a National Commission for Women in accordance with the provisions of the newly gazetted Bill on Women's Empowerment. The parliamentarian made these remarks while speaking at a briefing at the President's Media Centre, where she also revealed that the Cabinet of Ministers have approved a proposal to amend the Prevention of Domestic Violence Act.
The bill on the Women's Empowerment Act has been gazetted and submitted to the Cabinet of Ministers. However, it requires further amendments. Once it is passed by Parliament, the bill will contain provisions for the establishment of a National Women's Commission. We vehemently oppose the proposal to lower the age of sexual consent to 14 years. Concurrently, a bill addressing gender equality has been submitted for the consideration of the Cabinet of Ministers. It will shortly be gazetted and submitted to Parliament for approval.
The farthest island from Sri Lanka, Katchathivu, has recently sparked debate in the Indian political arena with regard to Sri Lanka claiming the island in 1974 as per an agreement between then premiers of both India and Sri Lanka.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi alleged that the Indian National Congress Party is responsible for handing over the ownership of the Katchathivu island to Sri Lanka.
This comes against a backdrop where India's general election is slated to commence on the 19th of this month.
Katchathivu is a strip of land spanning 1.15 square kilometers, which Sri Lanka claimed ownership over in 1974. It is the farthest island from Sri Lanka and is situated close to India's Rameshwaram. Sri Lanka claimed the island as a result of an agreement signed between the then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and former Sri Lankan Prime Minister Sirimao Bandaranaike. Though Sri Lanka claimed Katchathivu, the ownership of the island has sparked a political row in India weeks before its general elections.
1974, the D-Day, Katchathivu was ceded to Sri Lanka. Who is responsible? Congress is 100% purely responsible, thereby creating all the problems our Tamil fishermen brothers and sisters are facing today.
In an ex-post, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi highlighted that Indians have been angered over the handing over of the island to Sri Lanka, adding that the Indian National Congress cannot be trusted. He further expressed his views on the matter during a political rally in Uttar Pradesh.
श्रीलंका और तमिलनाडु के बीच में समंदर में एक टापू है, कच्चाथीवू। ये द्वीप देश आजाद हुआ तब हमारे पास था, लेकिन कांग्रेस ने 4-5 दशक पहले कह दिया कि ये द्वीप तो गैर जरूरी है, और ये कहते हुए मां भारती का एक अंग कांग्रेस के लोगों ने भारत से अलग कर दिया।
In the meantime, Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri commented on the issue.
There is no such controversy. They are having an internal political debate on who is responsible for this. Other than that, no one is talking about reclaiming Katchathivu. We are of the view that there is no need to discuss this, as this was an issue which was solved 50 years ago. I also do not think that such issues will arise.
Well, the Colombo High Court today deferred former Health Minister Keheli Rambukwalla's petition to be granted bail. Meanwhile, a former minister's appeal for a writ order against his detainment has been scheduled for consideration by the Court of Appeal on the 9th of April. With that, here's a look at more local news across the island in brief.
The Colombo High Court today deferred the revision application filed by former Health Minister Keheliya Ramukwala seeking to be released on bail. Meanwhile, the Court of Appeals ordered the former minister's petition for a writ order nullifying the Maligakanda Magistrates Court's order to hold the former minister in remand custody until the conclusion of the case against him pertaining to the import of substandard IVIG to be called for consideration on the 9th of April. Police resorted to tear gas and water cannons to disperse a protest organised by the students of the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. The protest was launched against a cabinet decision to grant the medical faculty of the NSBM the use of the Homagama Base Hospital. Another protest launched by the students of the University of Moratuwa over the same issue was similarly dispersed by police. In other local news, the 4th Magistrates Court granted bail to frontline Socialist Party activist Duminda Nagamuwa, youth activist Lahiru Weerasekara and the Venerable Ratkarave Jinarathanathera, who are being held in remand custody. The trio were arrested during a protest march organised by the People's Struggle Movement on the 20th of March this year.
Welcome back. We take you to business news now. Minister Bandula Gunawardena, calling for a digitisation of state transport services, said that the Sri Lanka Transport Board loses about 10 million rupees a day as conductors and drivers siphon a portion of the total daily income. He said if income generating state departments, including tax collecting authorities, were digitised, it would reduce the current tax burden of the central general public. Additionally, commenting on the restructure of state-owned enterprises, Minister Gunawardena said that when restructuring, the burden on the general public for the continuity of these entities must be focused on more than the income which the sale proceeds can reap.
As Transportation Minister, I can't ask contractors to build roads on credit. No roads can be developed until outstanding dues are settled. Accordingly, the RDA has settled about 361 billion rupees in outstanding dues. If the state obtains some sort of a facility externally, we would have to settle those payments within 3 months. We have signed agreements adhering to those conditions. There are many fraudulent activities taking place in State Department when deals are done via cash transfers. For example, the SLTB performs a service that cannot be valued. Concurrently, however, the conductors and drivers of the buses siphon some of the funds that should come to the SLTB. That amount is about 10 million rupees a day. If we can digitalize the Inland Revenue Department, Customs, Excise Department, Department of Motor Traffic and the SLTB, we can reduce the tax burden on the general public.
මේ තියෙන ආයතන ප්‍රතිව්‍යුහගත කරා කියලා මේව විකුණුවා කියලා සමහර ඒවා ආණ්ඩුවට මේ කියන තරම් මුදලක් ලබා ගන්න බෑ කියන එක. විකුණන මුදල් නෙමෙයි.
It is not the income we must focus on, rather the funding from taxpayers' money that we allocate through the budget to continue these services. For example, if we take the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, in order for it to continue giving fuel at low prices after importing it for a higher price, that cost of the loss must be borne by the general public. There is no one else to absorb that responsibility.
Well, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka issued broad guidelines to a licensed bank last week to further strengthen the functions of already established post-COVID-19 revival units and reinvest those units as business revival units. The units will facilitate the sustainable revival of viable businesses affected by the recent macroeconomic conditions and ensure that the proper handling of the increased impaired assets of licensed bank.
According to the guidelines of the central bank, licensed banks are required to have robust business revival and rehabilitation policies and procedures to support the revival of businesses. Large banks with more than 50 branches may consider establishing units at branches or regional offices of banks. The fundamental viability of a business is a key factor for the consideration of business revival by a licensed bank. Guidelines further state that corporate borrowers who have outstanding credit facilities at multiple banks may agree on a corporate workout framework on a voluntary and mutually agreeable basis without court intervention to address financial business distress faced by them. The central bank also maintained that licensed banks are required to establish facilitating units by mid-May this year and be fully compliant with the requirements of the circular by July. The governing body said the setting up of BRUs is considered imperative to assist both performing and non-performing borrowers of licensed banks whose businesses are fundamentally viable to revive.
Following a recent survey, a London-based global magazine has named Sri Lanka as the best destination for solo female travellers in year 2024. According to British magazine Time Out, the Indian Ocean island is the perfect first stop for female travellers wanting to explore South Asia. The magazine further says that Sri Lanka is popular with backpackers and perfectly sized for a week or a month to explore ancient UNESCO-listed sites in Dambulla and Sigiriya, or to visit the tea plantations in Nuwara. Portugal, meanwhile, was ranked second, followed by Czechia, Japan, Guatemala, Vietnam, Australia, Greece and New Zealand, respectively.
Let's take you to the stock market now. The Colombo Bourse closed in green today, aided by consumer staples and financial stocks. The Colombo Stock Exchange, or share price index, climbed 0.67% to settle at 11,824.90. Now, Cargill's PLC and Commercial Bank of Ceylon PLC were the top gainers on the index, climbing 4.2% and 2.9% respectively. Trading volumes on the index fell to 63.6 million shares from 73.4 million shares in the previous session. Now, the S&P SL20 meanwhile climbed 1.29% to end at 3,393.28. Now, market turnover rose to 2.12 billion rupees from 2.08 billion rupees in the previous session. The banking sector was the top contributor to market turnover, while the capital goods sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net buyers, purchasing stocks worth 213.6 million rupees, while domestic investors were net sellers, offloading shares worth 2.05 billion rupees.
We have Minal Wickramarge from Capital Alliance with some thoughts in our next segment, Economic Outlook.
In terms of oil in the Sri Lankan market, even though there wasn't a cut in the 92-octane fuel price, it could be possible to see a price cut in the next revision owing to the current global oil market context. Shifting gears to the financial sector, the weekly average weighted prime lending rate, or the AWPLR, for the week ending March 28, 2024 decreased by 35 basis points to 10.69% compared to the previous week. This movement may influence borrowing and investment decisions in the coming periods. Now turning to the stock market, the Oil Share Price Index, or the ASPI, recorded a positive trend, increasing by 1.62% to reach 11,444.38 points by March 28. Similarly, the S&P SL20 index experienced a rise of 2.83%, reaching 3,317 points during the same period. These upward movements reflect positive investor sentiment and market trends. In terms of reserves, gross official reserves are provisionally estimated at US dollars 4,520 million, or 4 billion as of the end of February 2024. This includes the People Bank of China swap, which is equivalent to about 1.5 billion US dollars, which is subject to terms on usability. Lastly, in the government securities market, the rates of the 3-month and the 6-month treasury bills saw slight upward movements at the latest auction, which is held today. The 3-month bill rate rose by 4 basis points, while the 6-month treasury bill rate increased by 7 basis points.
Well, a trade fair was organized by the Commercial Bank for nearly 200 small and medium-scale enterprises across the country, enabling them to exhibit and sell their products and services and to enhance engagement with customers. The fair aided by these up-and-coming enterprises with the exposure of learning market dynamics in a bid to elevate their business ethos. With that, here's a look at more corporate news in brief.
A two-day fair was held at the Sri Lanka Exhibition and Convention Centre, providing an invaluable opportunity for nearly 200 small and medium-scale enterprises across the country. The trade fair, organised by the Commercial Bank, enabled these SMEs to exhibit and sell their products and services to engage with customers. Additionally, the SME Trade Fair and Exhibition not only provided an opportunity for SMEs to showcase their products to a wider audience, but also helped them source potential buyers, new suppliers, study other similar products in the market and the prevailing market dynamics, and to meet exporters who can equip them in making their products export-ready. Meanwhile, the Citizens Development Business Finance PLC recently announced the appointment of a director to the company. Accordingly, Jayomi Lokuliyana was appointed a non-executive independent director to the company with effect from the 1st of April this year. The company further added that the newly appointed director does not hold any voting or non-voting shares in the company as at the date of the appointment. In other similar news, Asia Asset Finance PLC announced the appointment of a director to the board of directors of the company recently. Talavattalage Chaminda Densil Kumarasiri was appointed as an independent non-executive director with effect from the 1st of April. In its corporate disclosure, the company added that Kumarasiri does not hold any shares of the company as at the date of appointment.
Well, that wraps up tonight's edition of First at 9 on Other Derana 24. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with more developments from across Sri Lanka and around the world. I'm Derana English.
I'm Mahesh Johnny. Have a good night.